At the center of this whirlwind were two children, one alien, one human, who seemed oblivious to the political implications of their newfound friendship. In the princess's chambers, now rearranged to accommodate various Earth games and activities that Ethan had described, the two sat engaged in animated conversation. So on Earth, we have these things called video games, Ethan was explaining, his hands moving expressively as he described the concept. They're like interactive stories where you control what happens. Lyra, who had never shown interest in the sophisticated Zentari simulations created for her therapy, was captivated. Can we play them here? I don't know, Ethan admitted. I didn't bring any with me, but maybe we could make our own game. The princess tilted her head, considering this novel idea. How? Well, we could make up rules for a game using things we have here. Like, Ethan looked around the chamber, his eyes landing on the holographic butterflies that still fluttered about. What if we try to guide the butterflies through an obstacle course? Using furniture, pillows, and the princess's art supplies, they constructed an elaborate obstacle course. Ethan showed Lyra how to use subtle air currents, created by waving their hands gently, to guide the holographic butterflies through the course. Though the princess's movements were limited, she discovered she could control the air currents with remarkable precision, and soon the two were engaged in friendly competition. Queen Azira entered the chamber to find her daughter laughing, her hoverchair moving with purpose as she tracked a butterfly through their makeshift course. The queen stood silently, unwilling to interrupt this miraculous scene. A royal physician approached, datapad in hand. "Your Majesty," she whispered, "the princess's neural scans from this morning are remarkable. The degradation appears to have halted, and there are signs of new neural pathways forming." "Is that possible?" the queen asked, her voice equally hushed. "Until yesterday, I would have said no. But it appears that mental stimulation and," the physician hesitated, searching for the right word, "happiness are having a physiological effect." The queen nodded, her compound eyes still fixed on her daughter. "Have the reports been prepared for the Coalition Medical Council?" "Yes, Your Majesty. They are already expressing interest in sending a delegation." "Good. And the proposal for the humans?" "The diplomatic corps has drafted it according to your specifications. It awaits your final approval." Queen Azira finally turned her attention to the physician. "This goes beyond medicine or diplomacy. What that boy has done for my daughter cannot be measured by your instruments or captured in treaties." "Indeed, Your Majesty. It is unexpected." The queen's gaze returned to the children. "Perhaps that is what we have been missing all along. The unexpected." Later that day, Ambassador Chun was summoned to the royal audience chamber. Unlike the formal reception of the previous day, this meeting had been arranged with urgency, and the ambassador arrived with visible concern. Queen Azira sat upon the crystal throne, but her posture was different, less rigid, more animated. Around her, the full royal court had assembled, including the High Council, military leaders, and cultural ministers. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation. "Ambassador Chun of Earth," the queen began as soon as the human had been announced. "Yesterday, I requested that your son remain on Elysium as a companion to Princess Lyra." "Yes, Your Majesty," the ambassador replied cautiously. "I have communicated your request to Earth's diplomatic corps, but such arrangements would require careful consideration." "My request has changed," Queen Azira interrupted, causing a ripple of surprise through the court. "I no longer ask merely for your son's presence." The ambassador tensed, clearly unsure where this was heading. Instead, the queen continued, rising from her throne in a dramatic gesture that signified the importance of the moment. "I propose a formal alliance between the Zentari Empire and Earth, with a cultural exchange program that would bring human children, particularly those with conditions similar to your son's, to Elysium, and Zentari children to Earth." A collective gasp rose from the court. The Zentari were known for their isolationist tendencies, particularly regarding their offspring. No such exchange had ever been proposed, let alone with a species as new to the coalition as humans. Ambassador Chen struggled to maintain her diplomatic composure. "Your Majesty, this is unexpected." As was your son's effect on my daughter, Queen Azira replied. The medical data is clear. Princess Lyra's condition is improving in ways our science thought impossible. Her neural patterns show regeneration. Her mobility is increasing. And most importantly, she is experiencing joy. The queen descended the steps of her dais, approaching the ambassador directly, another break with protocol that caused the court to murmur in astonishment. Ambassador, your species possesses something that cannot be measured by our most advanced technology, a capacity for connection that transcends conventional understanding. Ethan reached my daughter when all our knowledge could not. Children often have that ability, Your Majesty. Ambassador Chen replied carefully. They see past differences that adults get caught up in. Precisely, the Queen agreed. And that is why I wish to formalize an exchange. Not just for Lyra's benefit, but for all our peoples. My scientists believe that the neurological variations in humans, what you call ADHD, autism, and other conditions, may provide keys to understanding and potentially treating Zentari neural disorders that have plagued our species for generations. The ambassador's expression showed dawning comprehension, and in return, Earth would receive unprecedented access to Zentari biotechnology, educational systems, and cultural knowledge. A true alliance, benefiting both our worlds. The court erupted in discussion, some voices raised in protest, others in support. Queen Azira raised 2 of her 4 hands, commanding silence. I have made my decision, she declared. The formal proposal will be delivered to your government today. I trust you will advocate for its acceptance. Ambassador Chen bowed deeply. Your Majesty, I will personally ensure that Earth's government understands the significance and potential of this alliance. Speaking as a mother, as well as a diplomat, I believe this could be the beginning of something truly remarkable. As the ambassador was escorted from the chamber, debate exploded among the court. Senior advisor Thaler approached the throne, his expression troubled. Your Majesty, this is unprecedented. To share our technology, our children. To save them, Queen Azira corrected firmly. You have seen the princess's medical data. What if the same improvements could be achieved for others with similar conditions? Would you deny them that chance? Of course not. But there are no buts. Thaler, I have watched my daughter suffer for 16 cycles. Yesterday, I watched her laugh. Today, I watched her play. What mother would not move galaxies to secure such joy for her child? The advisor bowed his head. As always, your wisdom guides us, Your Majesty. Not wisdom, the Queen replied softly. Love. Something even our advanced society sometimes forgets the power of. While the political machinery of 2 worlds began to engage, Ethan and Lyra remained blissfully focused on their growing friendship. In the palace gardens, they had discovered a mutual fascination with the ecosystem. Ethan marveling at the alien flora, Lyra seeing her familiar surroundings through new eyes. On Earth, we have these things called bees, Ethan explained as they watched Elysium's equivalent, shimmering, 6-winged insects that gathered nectar from the singing flowers. They're super important because they pollinate plants, help them make seeds. We call these zephyrs, Lyra replied, her voice growing stronger with each conversation. They sing to the flowers, and the flowers sing back. The zephyrs remember every song, and they teach them to their offspring. Ethan's eyes widened. That's way cooler than bees. But I would like to see a bee someday, Lyra said thoughtfully. And snow and oceans, and all the things you've told me about. Maybe you will, Ethan replied. My mom's a diplomat. Maybe she could arrange a visit. Little did they know that far more than a visit was being arranged. In the communications center of the palace, transmissions were already flowing between Elysium and Earth, between the Zentari Empire and the Coalition Council. News of the Queen's unprecedented proposal was spreading rapidly through diplomatic channels, causing astonishment throughout the galaxy. That evening, a small ceremony was held in the palace, nothing formal by Zentari standards, but significant nonetheless. Queen Azira had commissioned a gift for Ethan, a token of royal appreciation. The boy stood somewhat uncomfortably in ceremonial robes that had been hastily adapted for human physiology, while Princess Lyra watched from her hover chair, her eyes bright with excitement. Ethan Cole of Earth, Queen Azira began, using his full name for the first time. In recognition of your service to the royal house of Zentari, I present you with this token. She held out a small crystalline object that caught the light, sending prismatic patterns dancing across the chamber. It was a miniature replica of the singing flowers, encased in an eternal preservation field. This flower was harvested from the royal gardens at the exact moment Princess Lyra first laughed. It will never fade, and when touched, it will replay that moment of joy for all eternity. Ethan accepted the gift with surprising grace, bowing as he had been instructed. Thank you, Your Majesty. It's beautiful. It is more than beautiful, the Queen replied. It is historic. Never before has a human been granted a royal memento. You are the first, but if my proposal is accepted by your government, you will not be the last. The boy looked confused. Proposal? Ambassador Chun, standing nearby, stepped forward. Her Majesty has proposed a formal alliance between Earth and the Zentari Empire, including a cultural exchange program. Ethan's face lit up. You mean more kids from Earth could come here? And I could come back? Indeed, Queen Azira confirmed. Not just that. Princess Lyra might someday visit Earth to see the oceans and snow you have described so vividly. The princess made a sound of delight, her hover chair moving forward eagerly. Truly, Mother? I could leave Elysium. The Queen's expression softened as she looked at her daughter. If the alliance is formed and your health continues to improve, yes, my child. The universe could open to you in ways we never thought possible. That night, as Elysium's 3 moons rose in the sky, creating complex tidal patterns in the atmosphere that the Zentari could perceive but humans could not, 2 children from different worlds dreamed of possibilities that had seemed impossible just days before. In Princess Lyra's chambers, the medical monitors showed something the royal physicians had never seen: patterns consistent with dreaming, a neural state the princess had rarely achieved due to her condition. She was dreaming of Earth, of snow falling on her upturned face, of oceans stretching to the horizon. In the guest chamber, Ethan dreamed as well, his active mind finally still in sleep. He dreamed of teaching other Zentari children to solve puzzle cubes, of showing Lyra how to build a snowman, of friendships that spanned the stars. And in her royal suite, Queen Azira reviewed the first diplomatic responses to her proposal. Earth's government was cautiously optimistic. The Coalition Council was stunned but intrigued. Other founding species were expressing everything from support to concern to outright opposition. Yet none of that mattered as much as the medical report on her datapad, concrete evidence that Princess Lyra's neural condition was responding to the stimulation provided by her new friendship. For the first time since the princess's birth, there was genuine hope for improvement, perhaps even recovery. The Queen composed a personal message to Earth's leaders, bypassing the usual diplomatic channels. Your species has given me back my daughter's laughter. For this, the Zentari Empire will be forever in your debt. The alliance I propose is not merely political. It is alien. Queen saw a human boy make her disabled daughter laugh as never before. Her decision stunned all. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The crystalline spires of Elysium, the Zentari homeworld, glittered in the light of twin suns. Within the grand palace, Princess Lyra sat alone in her hover chair, her translucent skin allowing glimpses of her fragile internal organs, a condition that had afflicted her since birth. The Zentari were known throughout the galaxy as the most advanced civilization, their biotechnology unmatched, their empire spanning hundreds of worlds. Yet for all their advancements, they had never been able to cure the princess's condition, a degenerative neural disorder that had left her unable to walk and in constant pain. The condition had also affected her mental state. She rarely spoke and had never laughed. Not once in her 16 cycles of life. Queen Azira watched her daughter from the doorway, her heart heavy. The royal physicians had tried everything, even consulting with the foremost medical experts from other species in their coalition. Nothing had worked. The queen's forearms were clasped tightly around her torso, a sign of deep distress among her species. "Your Majesty," Senior Advisor Thaler approached, his voice low. "The human delegation has arrived." Queen Azira's compound eyes narrowed slightly. The humans were a relatively new species to join the Galactic Coalition, having been discovered only 30 cycles ago. They were physically unimpressive, technologically primitive by Zentari standards, and considered somewhat unpredictable. Their acceptance into the coalition had been controversial, with the Zentari royal court being among the strongest opponents. "I still do not understand why we must entertain them," she said, her voice melodic despite her annoyance. "Their world has little to offer us. It is diplomatic protocol, Your Majesty. All new coalition members are granted audience with each founding species, and humans have shown remarkable adaptability." Yes, she interrupted. "Their resilience in the face of their obvious limitations. I've heard it all before." She cast one more glance at her daughter, who was staring blankly at the holographic butterflies floating around her chamber, a program designed to stimulate her senses, yet failing to elicit any response. "Very well. Let us get this over with." The human delegation was modest: 3 diplomats, 2 scientists, and a boy who appeared to be approximately 12 Earth years old. Queen Azira had been briefed that bringing offspring to diplomatic missions was part of human cultural education, though she found it highly irregular. The formal introductions proceeded according to protocol. Ambassador Chun presented her credentials, explained Earth's interest in cultural and technological exchange, and expressed gratitude for the Zentari's acceptance of humans into the coalition, though Azira noted the slight tension in the woman's voice. The humans were well aware of Zentari reluctance. Throughout the proceedings, Azira noticed the human boy becoming increasingly restless. He fidgeted in his seat, his eyes wandering around the grand reception hall. "Is there a problem with your offspring?" Azira finally asked, interrupting Ambassador Chen mid-sentence. The ambassador's face flushed slightly. "I apologize, Your Majesty. My son, Ethan, has a condition our species calls ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It makes it difficult for him to remain still for extended periods." Azira's interest was marginally piqued. "A neurological condition? And your species has not cured it?" "We manage it, Your Majesty. In many ways, it's not considered a disability, but a different way of processing information. Ethan actually excels in creative thinking and problem-solving, particularly in crisis situations." "Fascinating," Azira replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. She was about to continue the formal proceedings when an aide rushed in, approaching her with clear distress. "Your Majesty, forgive the interruption. Princess Lyra is experiencing another episode. The royal physicians suggest your presence might help calm her." Queen Azira rose immediately. Episodes of neural distress were becoming more frequent for her daughter, and each one seemed to diminish her further. "This audience is concluded for today," she announced to the human delegation. "You will be informed when and if we resume." As the queen turned to leave, Ambassador Chen spoke up. "Your Majesty, if I may, perhaps Ethan could be of assistance?" Azira turned, her compound eyes gleaming with a mixture of surprise and offense. "You suggest a human child could help where our greatest medical minds have failed?" "Not medically, Your Majesty, but children often connect in ways adults cannot. Ethan has a gift for making others feel at ease." "Mom, is that the princess you told me about?" Ethan asked, his eyes bright with curiosity. "The one who's never laughed." Ambassador Chen nodded, placing a cautionary hand on her son's shoulder. Queen Azira studied the boy. There was something in his expression, an openness, perhaps, that gave her pause. After a moment of consideration, she made a decision that would later be described as either the height of desperation or a stroke of diplomatic genius. "The human child may accompany us," she declared. But only him. The royal chambers were a marvel of Zentari architecture. Living walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, and gravity fields had been adjusted for optimal comfort. Princess Lyra's personal suite was filled with the most advanced medical technology in the known galaxy, Yet none of it had brought joy to the young princess. When they entered, Lyra was in clear distress. Her body trembled, and the medical monitors showed dangerous spikes in her neural activity. The royal physicians hovered nearby, administering various treatments, but the princess seemed unreachable in her suffering. "Approach slowly," Queen Azira instructed Ethan, "and do not touch her without permission." Ethan nodded, his earlier restlessness suddenly gone. He moved toward the hover chair where Lyra sat, her translucent skin allowing them to see the rapid beating of her hearts. "Hi, I'm Ethan," he said simply. "I'm from Earth. Have you ever heard of it?" Lyra gave no indication she had heard him. "It's okay if you don't want to talk," Ethan continued, undeterred. "Sometimes I don't feel like talking either, especially when adults keep asking me if I'm paying attention. Your species has given me back my daughter's laughter. For this, the Zentari Empire will be forever in your debt. The alliance I propose is not merely political. It is a bridge between our worlds, built on the foundation of a child's joy. In the vast complexity of galactic politics, sometimes the simplest connections are the most profound." 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of diplomatic activity, medical breakthroughs, and growing friendship between Ethan and Princess Lyra. The human delegation had been scheduled to depart, but extensions were granted as negotiations continued regarding the Queen's alliance proposal. For the children, these high-level discussions were background noise to their daily adventures. Ethan had introduced Lyra to dozens of Earth games, each one seeming to awaken new neural pathways in the princess's mind. The royal physicians documented every improvement, creating a comprehensive study that was already being hailed as revolutionary in Zentari medical circles. Perhaps most remarkable was the physical improvement in Lyra's condition. Her hover chair, once necessary for all movement, was now often left idle as she attempted short walks with Ethan's support. Her translucent skin had taken on a healthier glow, and the constant pain that had been her companion since birth had diminished considerably. "It's like her body is remembering how to be healthy," one physician explained to Queen Azira as they watched the children from a discreet distance. They were in the anti-gravity garden, where Lyra was attempting to float alongside Ethan in a specially designed pool. "Remembering?" the Queen questioned. "Or learning for the first time?" "Perhaps both, Your Majesty. The human boy's influence has created a cascade effect in her neural system. The joy, the mental stimulation, it's triggering regenerative processes we didn't know were possible." Queen Azira watched as her daughter successfully floated unassisted for the first time, her delighted laughter echoing across the garden. "And you believe this could be replicated with other children? Other conditions?" "The data suggests so. The methodology is unorthodox. Play, emotional connection, creativity, but the results are undeniable." In the pool, Ethan was teaching Lyra to make splashes, something the princess found endlessly amusing. Her coordination was improving daily, her movements becoming more deliberate and controlled. "Your Majesty," the physician continued cautiously, "there's something else. Something unexpected in the princess's latest neural scans." The Queen turned her attention fully to the physician. "Explain." "She appears to be developing what we can only describe as a form of empathic ability, a heightened sensitivity to the emotional states of others." "That's impossible," Queen Azira stated flatly. "Zentari do not possess empathic abilities. No Zentari has ever been documented with such abilities," the physician corrected gently. "But Princess Lyra's neural structure is reorganizing in unprecedented ways. The areas associated with emotional processing are forming connections we've never seen before." The Queen's compound eyes narrowed in thought. Could this be a response to the human? Their species is known for emotional expressiveness. It's a possibility we're exploring. Human neurochemistry is significantly different from our own, particularly in the processing of emotions. Perhaps the princess is developing new neural pathways to better understand her friend. Before the Queen could respond, a splash of water caught both of them by surprise. Lyra had intentionally created a large wave, drenching Ethan, who responded with delighted shock. Both children dissolved into laughter. Whatever the cause, Queen Azira said softly, I cannot argue with the results. Later that day, as the twin suns began their descent, an urgent message arrived from Earth. The human government had reached a decision regarding the Queen's proposal. Ambassador Chen requested an immediate audience. The formal throne room was prepared, though with less ceremony than usual, another indication of how much had changed in the past 2 weeks. When the ambassador arrived, she was accompanied not only by her diplomatic team, but by a holographic projection of Earth's Secretary General. Your Majesty, Ambassador Chun began after formal greetings had been exchanged. Earth's government has carefully considered your proposal for an alliance and cultural exchange program. Queen Azira sat regally on her throne, 2 of her 4 hands clasped in what the humans had come to recognize as a gesture of anticipation. And your decision? The holographic Secretary General stepped forward. Queen Azira of the Zentari Empire, on behalf of Earth and its people, we accept your proposal with profound gratitude and hope for the future of both our worlds. A collective exhale seemed to pass through the throne room. The Queen's posture relaxed slightly. There are, of course, details to be negotiated, the Secretary continued, particularly regarding the safety and education of the children who would participate in the exchange program. But the principle of the alliance and the exchange has been unanimously approved by Earth's Governing Council. Queen Azira arose from her throne, a gesture of respect rarely offered to any diplomatic representative. This decision honors both our peoples. The details will be addressed, but let us first celebrate the bridge we have built, a bridge that began with a boy's kindness and a princess's laughter. The formal announcement would be made the following day to the Galactic Coalition Council, but tonight would be a celebration within the palace. The Queen had ordered a feast that would incorporate both Centauri and human cuisines, another unprecedented gesture of cultural integration. As preparations for the feast were underway, Ethan and Lyra were informed of the historic agreement. The princess's reaction was immediate and joyful. She would have the opportunity to see Earth, to experience all the wonders Ethan had described. The boy was equally excited, particularly about the prospect of other Earth children joining the exchange. There's this girl in my class, Madison, he told Lyra excitedly. She has autism, which is different from ADHD, but she notices patterns that nobody else does. I bet she'd love the singing flowers. Lyra, who had been practicing walking with the assistance of a specially designed support frame, took a few careful steps toward her friend. And I want to meet her, she said, her voice stronger than it had been just days ago. I want to meet all your friends. The feast that evening was unlike any in Zentari history. Traditional protocol was set aside in favor of a more relaxed atmosphere. Human and Zentari sat interspersed at the tables, sharing food and conversation. Queen Azira had even invited the palace staff to join, another break with tradition that caused a stir among the more conservative court members. At the center of it all were Ethan and Lyra, seated together at the high table, their friendship now a symbol of interspecies cooperation. The princess was dressed in formal attire, but with modifications that allowed her greater freedom of movement. Her hover chair was nearby, but she had insisted on sitting in a regular chair, with support cushions to accommodate her still fragile physiology. As the meal progressed, Queen Azira rose to offer a toast. The court fell silent, all eyes turning to their monarch. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for the Zentari Empire, she began, her melodic voice carrying throughout the hall. For generations, we have prided ourselves on our advancements, our technology, our position within the galaxy. Yet it took a child from Earth, a species we once considered primitive, to teach us what we had forgotten. She gestured toward Ethan and Lyra. Look at them, different in every biological measure, yet connected by something our science cannot quantify. My daughter, who had never laughed, now fills these halls with joy. Her body, once failing, now grows stronger each day. And all because a boy showed her how to play, how to imagine, how to see wonder in the universe. The Queen raised her ceremonial chalice. To the alliance between Earth and Elysium. May it bring healing not just to our children, but to our understanding of what truly matters in this vast galaxy. The toast was echoed throughout the hall, Centauri and humans joining in a moment of shared hope. As the celebration continued, Ethan leaned over to Lyra. "Are you okay?" he asked, noticing that she had grown quieter. "Are you getting tired?" The princess shook her head. "Not tired. Just feeling a lot." "Like what?" Lyra's expression was difficult to read, her alien features configured in a way Ethan hadn't seen before. "Everyone's emotions. They're so bright. Like colors I can see, but not with my eyes." Ethan looked confused. "You can feel what everyone is feeling." "Not exactly. It's more like..." She searched for words, like hearing music from different rooms. "Some happy, some worried, some excited." "That sounds kind of overwhelming." "It is," she admitted, "but also amazing." What neither child realized was that this conversation was being closely monitored by the royal physicians, who were documenting the princess's emerging empathic abilities. This development had been shared with only a select few, including Ambassador Chun, as it represented a potentially revolutionary evolutionary step for the Centauri. The night concluded with a performance by the Royal Symphony, musical instruments that were actually living organisms, resonating in complex harmonies. To everyone's surprise, Princess Lyra asked if she might join them. Though she had received musical training as part of her therapy, she had never shown interest in performing. With assistance, she was brought to the symphony area, where a living harp-like organism was adjusted to her height and physical capabilities. The hall fell silent as the princess placed her delicate hands on the living instrument. What followed left even the most composed Centauri courtiers in tears. Lyra played a melody none of them had heard before. Not a traditional Centauri composition, but something new, something that seemed to bridge alien musical structures with distinctly human emotional themes. Later, she would explain that she had composed it based on how Ethan's friendship felt to her, a translation of emotional connection into sound. As the final notes faded, the hall erupted in applause. Queen Azira found herself unable to maintain royal composure, all four of her hands covering her face as tears flowed freely. Ambassador Chun, seated nearby, reached out instinctively, placing a comforting human hand on one of the queen's arms, a gesture of empathy that would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. The celebration eventually wound down, the princess finally showing signs of fatigue after her emotionally and physically demanding performance. As she was escorted back to her chambers, she insisted that Ethan walk alongside her hover chair. "Tomorrow," she told him as they reached her door, "I want to try to walk in the garden. The whole path." "That's pretty far," Ethan said, concern evident in his voice. "Are you sure?" Lyra's determination was clear. "I have to get stronger. If I'm going to visit Earth someday, I need to be able to walk in your gravity." The boy grinned. "Then we'll practice every day until you can." As Ethan was escorted back to his own quarters, Queen Azira watched from a distance, her heart full of emotions she had rarely allowed herself to feel. Senior Advisor Thaler approached cautiously. "Your Majesty," he began, his voice low. "The court is buzzing with rumors about the princess's new abilities. Some are calling it evolution, others a miracle." "And what do you call it, Thala?" the queen asked. The advisor considered his words carefully. "I would call it a reminder, Your Majesty. A reminder that perhaps our advancement as a species has been too focused on technology and not enough on connection." Queen Azira nodded thoughtfully. "A wisdom I failed to see until a human child showed it to me." 3 months later, preparations were underway for the first official exchange under the new alliance. 20 human children, all with various neurological conditions that Earth classified as neurodivergent, would travel to Elysium for a 6-month program. Simultaneously, 15 Centauri children with conditions similar to Princess Lyra's would journey to Earth. The princess herself had made remarkable progress. She could now walk unassisted for short periods, and her neural scans showed unprecedented regeneration. Most striking was the development of her empathic abilities, which had become refined enough that she could distinguish individual emotional signatures and even influence the emotional states of those around her, a skill she was learning to use with care and responsibility. Ethan had returned to Earth briefly with his mother to help prepare for the exchange program, but had come back to Elysium as an official cultural liaison, the youngest diplomat in Earth's history. His friendship with Lyra had only deepened, and he had become something of a celebrity among the Centauri, particularly the younger generation. On the day the first human exchange group was scheduled to arrive, Princess Lyra insisted on being present at the spaceport to greet them. She stood at the front of the reception committee, using a new mobility aid that had been designed based on Earth technology but enhanced with Centauri biotechnology, a perfect symbol of the Alliance itself. As the Earth vessel docked and the ramp extended, Lyra reached for Ethan's hand. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "What if they don't like me?" "They'll love you," Ethan assured her. "Just be yourself." The princess gave him a look that had become familiar over the months, slightly exasperated, slightly amused. "Being myself is what I'm learning to do because of you." The first children began to descend the ramp, their eyes wide with wonder at the crystalline spaceport and the alien delegation waiting to greet them. Leading them was Madison, the girl Ethan had mentioned months ago. Her movements were precise and measured, her gaze taking in every detail of her surroundings. When she reached the bottom of the ramp, she locked eyes with Princess Lyra. For a moment, the two simply regarded each other, one human, one Centauri, both navigating worlds that hadn't been designed for them. Then Madison spoke. "Your palace has 78 spires. I counted them as we approached. They follow the Fibonacci sequence." Lyra's expression brightened. "Yes, most visitors never notice that. It was designed that way to harmonize with the natural growth patterns of our crystal formations." "I like patterns," Madison said simply. "Me too," the princess replied. "Would you like to see the singing flowers? They create harmonic patterns based on emotional states." Madison nodded eagerly, and just like that, another bridge was formed. The formal welcome ceremony proceeded according to protocol, with speeches from Queen Azira and Earth's representatives. But the true diplomacy was happening among the children, who were already forming connections despite their different biologies, cultures, and neurological profiles. That evening, as the palace prepared housing for the Earth children, Queen Azira found a moment alone with Ambassador Chun. "Your son changed the course of our civilization," the Queen said without preamble. "I want you to understand the magnitude of what has happened here." The ambassador nodded solemnly. "I believe I do, Your Majesty. But I also believe this was always possible. It just needed the right catalyst." "A laughing princess," Queen Azira said softly. "And a boy who saw her, not her condition," the ambassador added. The Queen's compound eyes reflected the light of Elysium's rising moons. "The Galactic Coalition has existed for millennia, yet true understanding between species has eluded us. Perhaps we were looking in the wrong places. The children will show us the way," Ambassador Chin suggested. "Indeed they will," the Queen agreed. "My scientists predict that within a generation, this exchange program will revolutionize neural medicine throughout the coalition. But more importantly, it will change how we see each other." 6 months later, as the first exchange program neared its conclusion, a ceremony was held in the Grand Plaza of the Centauri capital city. Thousands gathered to witness what many were already calling a historic moment. Princess Lyra, standing completely unassisted for the first time in public, addressed the gathered crowd. Beside her stood Ethan, Madison, and several other children from both worlds who had formed particularly strong bonds. "Before I met Ethan Cole from Earth," the princess began, her voice carrying clearly across the plaza, "I had never laughed. I had never played. I had never imagined that I could walk, or create music, or feel the emotions of others." She gestured to the children beside her. "Each of these friends has taught me something different. Madison showed me that patterns exist everywhere, even in places most cannot see. Riley taught me that movement can be a form of expression. Avery helped me understand that sometimes silence is as important as sound." The princess took a step forward, a murmur of amazement rippling through the crowd at her steady gait. "My mother, Queen Azira, has declared that this alliance between our worlds will be my legacy. The Lyra Protocol, they're calling it. But I disagree. Another ripple through the crowd. This one of surprise at the princess's gentle contradiction of her mother. This is not my legacy, Lyra continued. It is our legacy. All of us who have learned to see beyond our differences, to find connection where others saw only division. The true protocol is simple. Listen, play, laugh, and remember that sometimes the greatest advancements come not from technology, but from friendship. As she concluded her speech, the singing flowers that had been placed throughout the plaza burst into synchronized melody, responding to the wave of emotion that flowed from the princess and spread through the gathered crowd. It was a demonstration of her now considerable empathic abilities, but also a perfect metaphor for what had been achieved. Harmony created from diverse elements, beauty born of connection. That night, in a private moment in the palace gardens, Ethan and Lyra sat watching the stars. The boy would return to Earth the following day, though only temporarily. His position as cultural liaison would bring him back to Elysium regularly. I'm going to miss you, Lyra said, her empathic abilities making it unnecessary to hide her true feelings. I'll miss you too, Ethan replied. But it's not goodbye. It's just, see you later. The princess nodded, then reached into a pocket of her new walking outfit, clothing that had been specially designed to support her improving mobility while honoring Zentari traditions. She pulled out a small object and handed it to Ethan. It was a crystal, similar to the one her mother had given him months ago, but this one was different, more vibrant, pulsing with subtle colors. I made this, she explained, with my new abilities. It contains, well, it's hard to explain in words. It contains how your friendship feels to me. Ethan accepted the gift carefully. As his fingers closed around it, a wave of emotion washed over him. Joy, gratitude, and something deeper, a sense of connection that transcended species, distance, and difference. Whoa, he breathed, eyes wide. That's amazing. When you look at it, you'll remember, Lyra said simply. And so will I. As the twin suns of Elysium set, and its 3 moons rose in complex orbital harmony, 2 children from different worlds sat in companionable silence, watching the stars they both shared. Above them, ships from Earth and other coalition worlds moved through the night sky, vessels that now carried not just trade goods or diplomatic missions, but children, laughter, and the promise of connections yet to be formed. In her royal chambers, Queen Azira reviewed the final reports from the exchange program. The medical data was extraordinary. Every child, human and Zentari alike, had shown improvements in their conditions. The human children had developed heightened sensory awareness, increased pattern recognition, and in some cases, the beginnings of the same empathic abilities that Lyra had pioneered. The Zentari children who had gone to Earth returned with improved mobility, greater emotional expressiveness, and neural regeneration patterns similar to the princesses. But beyond the medical achievements, the Queen recognized something even more significant. A fundamental shift in how the Zentari viewed themselves and their place in the galaxy. For generations, they had considered themselves superior, their advanced technology and biological complexity setting them apart. Now, they were learning the value of what they had overlooked, the power of play, of laughter, of seeing the universe through different eyes. The Lyra Protocol, as it was now officially known, would soon expand to include other species in the Galactic Coalition. Already, requests were pouring in from worlds that had heard of the miraculous improvements in the princess's condition. What had begun as a mother's desperate hope for her daughter had blossomed into an interstellar movement. And it had all started with a laughing princess and a boy with a puzzle cube, some string, and terrible jokes. 1 year to the day after Ethan first made Princess Lyra laugh, a monument was unveiled in the central plaza of the Zentari capital. Unlike the imposing statues and grand architectural works that typically commemorated historical events, this monument was simple, a crystalline structure that captured the exact moment the princess had first laughed, frozen in time like an emotional photograph. When visitors approached, the crystal would respond to their emotional state, creating a unique harmonic pattern. Children particularly loved it, often spending hours experimenting with how their feelings could change the sounds and colors the monument produced. On Earth, a similar monument was erected in Geneva, outside the headquarters of the Planetary Alliance. There, the crystal structure was integrated with Earth technology, creating an interactive experience that helped humans understand the empathic abilities the Centauri were now developing. These monuments stood as testaments to the power of connection across differences, reminders that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest acts of kindness. In the years that followed, the alliance between Earth and the Centauri Empire grew stronger. The exchange program expanded, with thousands of children participating. Research centers dedicated to neural integration and empathic development were established on both worlds. Medical breakthroughs emerged from the collaboration, benefiting not just those with conditions like Lyra's or Ethan's, but all citizens of both worlds. Princess Lyra eventually visited Earth, fulfilling her dream of seeing oceans and feeling snow on her face. Her improved condition allowed her to experience Earth's higher gravity with only minimal assistance, and her developing empathic abilities gave her a unique perspective on human culture and emotions. Ethan continued his role as a cultural liaison, growing from a boy with ADHD who struggled in formal settings to a respected diplomat known for his creativity and adaptability in crisis situations. The traits that had once been seen as limitations became his greatest strengths in bridging the gap between different species and mindsets. Queen Azira, once one of the strongest opponents of human inclusion in the coalition, became their most vocal advocate. Her decision to open her empire and her heart to a species she had once dismissed had transformed not just her daughter's life, but the future of interspecies relations throughout the galaxy. And it had all begun with a moment that seemed small at the time, but would echo across worlds and generations. An alien queen saw a human boy make her disabled daughter laugh as never before, and her decision stunned all. In royal archives and Earth's historical records, diplomatic analyses and medical journals, the story was documented in its political and scientific dimensions. But in the hearts and minds of those who witnessed it, the story was much simpler. Sometimes, the most powerful force in the universe is a child's laughter. Princess Lyra, who had once been defined by what she could not do, became known throughout the galaxy for what she could: bridge worlds, heal divisions, and show that difference need not mean distance. Her name became synonymous with hope, with connection, with the idea that limitations can become launching points for new possibilities. As for Ethan, the boy whose ADHD had once been seen as a challenge to overcome, he found his place in a universe that finally recognized the value of minds that work differently. His ability to see connections others missed, to approach problems from unexpected angles, and to reach across differences with simple kindness made him not just a successful diplomat, but a symbol of humanity's unique contribution to the galactic community. Years later, when asked about the moment that changed everything, both would give the same answer. It wasn't about politics or medicine or even diplomacy. It was about two children, different in almost every way imaginable, finding common ground in laughter. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.